I need to tell you something about books that no one really says out loud. Most books don't change your life. Most books give you a little dopamine hit of feeling smart for a week, and then you forget 90% of what you read and go back to operating exactly the same way you did before you opened page 1. You've experienced this. You read a book everyone raved about. You nodded the whole way through. You told someone it was really good. And then 3 months later, you can't remember a single idea from it that actually changed how you live. That's not your fault. That's just most books. They inform you without transforming you. They add to your knowledge without changing your operating system. The 10 books I'm about to share with you are different. Not because they're the most popular or the most impressive on a shelf, but because each one broke something in my brain. Each one gave me a single idea, one idea that fundamentally changed how I make decisions, how I see other people, how I understand myself, or how I move through the world. And those ideas didn't stay on the page. They followed me into my actual life and rearranged it. I'm not going to summarize these books. Summaries are not that helpful. I'm going to give you the one idea from each book that hit me the hardest, explain why it matters, and show you what changes when you actually absorb it. 10 books, 10 ideas, each one building on the last. By the end of this video, you will have a framework for thinking, deciding, and living that took me years and thousands of pages to assemble. And I'll tell you now, book number 9 is the one that ties all the others together. It's the one that made every other book on the list make sense. It's the oldest book on the list by about 3,000 years, I'd say. Stay for it. Let's go. The first book on my list is How to Decide by Annie Duke. Here's the lesson. You are confusing the quality of your decisions with the quality of your outcomes, and it's destroying your judgment. This is the book I wish I'd read before I made every major decision in my 20s. Not because it tells you what to decide, because it exposes the fundamental error in how you evaluate your own decisions, an error you're making every single day and don't even know it. Here's the error. You judge your decisions by what happened after. If the outcome was good, you assume the decision was good. If the outcome was bad, you assume the decision was bad. This feels so obviously correct that you've never questioned it. But Annie Duke, a former professional poker player who went on to study decision science, dismantles this completely. She calls it resulting, judging a decision by its result rather than by the quality of the process that led to it. And resulting is everywhere. You took a job and it worked out. You think, great decision. Your friend took the same job and it didn't work out. Bad decision. But the decision was identical. The information available was identical. The reasoning was identical. The only difference was what happened next, which in most real-world situations involves a massive amount of luck, timing, and randomness that had nothing to do with the quality of the choice. Here's why this matters so much. If you judge decisions only by outcomes, you learn the wrong lessons from your own life. You abandon good strategies because they had bad results. You double down on bad strategies because they happen to work. You become superstitious instead of strategic. You let randomness rewrite your playbook. The shift is this. Start evaluating decisions at the moment you made them, with the information you had at the time, not with the information you have now. Ask yourself, given what I knew then, was that a reasonable choice? If yes, a bad outcome doesn't make it a bad decision. I'll give you an example. Let's say you analyze something perfectly as an investment. You got really strategic about it. You looked at every part of it. You finally put some money in and it didn't pay off. You would say it was a bad decision to invest or that your process was flawed. But let's say you just threw in some money into something because you felt like it and you felt some moment that day and it turned into a great decision. You'll say, hey, I'm a lucky person. I'm just going to do that again. This distinction, separating decision quality from outcome quality, will make you a sharper thinker than 99% of people you know. Because almost everyone is letting hindsight rewrite their judgment. And hindsight is a liar dressed as a teacher. Book number 2 is Finding Your Element by Ken Robinson. Here's the lesson. You are not designed for one purpose. You are designed for an intersection, and you've probably been looking in the wrong place. Everyone wants to find their passion. Ken Robinson's work helped me realize very early in my life why that search feels so impossible. Because you're looking for one thing, a single calling, one career, one label, one answer to what were you put on earth to do. And that framing of a single discoverable purpose is why you feel lost. Because for most people, the purpose isn't a single thing. It's an intersection. Robin calls it your element, the place where natural aptitude meets personal passion. Not aptitude alone. Plenty of people are good at things they hate. Not passion alone. Plenty of people love things they'll never be good at. The element is where the two overlap. And here's what Robinson understood that most career advice ignores. The element is almost never found through introspection. It's found through exposure. You can't think your way to your purpose. You have to collide with it. You have to try things, fail at things, stumble into rooms you didn't plan to enter, and pay attention to the moments when time disappears, when the work stops feeling like work and starts feeling like breathing. And those moments will never happen in the place you expected them to. The reason this book changed my life is that it gave me permission to stop searching for one thing and start paying attention to what was already happening at the edges. The skills I was developing over here, the curiosity I couldn't explain over there, the conversations that energized me that had nothing to do with my job title. Robinson showed me that the element isn't found by narrowing down. It's found by paying attention to where your different interests, skills, and fascinations collide. Mine happened to be monk teachings with media and with management and when I worked in business. The intersection is the purpose. And you've probably been standing in it for years without recognizing it because it doesn't match the single label format the world told you to look for. Book number 3 is The Organized Mind by Daniel Levitin. Here's the lesson. Your brain was never designed to hold the life you're asking it to hold, and every ounce of mental clutter is costing you intelligence. This is the book that made me understand why I felt stupid on my most productive days and sharp on my laziest ones. And the reason was embarrassingly simple. I was using my brain wrong. Not metaphorically, neurologically. Daniel Levitin is a neuroscientist at McGill University, and his core argument is devastating in its clarity. Your brain's processing capacity is finite and measurable. Every decision you make, what to eat, what to wear, whether to answer that text, where you put your keys, uses the same neural resources as your most important creative and analytical work. Your brain does not have separate budgets for trivial decisions and important decisions. It has one budget, and you are blowing most of it before noon on things that don't matter. The research he cites is staggering. The average person makes approximately 35,000 decisions per day. 35,000! Most of them are micro decisions you don't even notice, but your prefrontal cortex notices every single one. And each one drains the same tank that you need for the work that actually matters. Here's the idea that rewired me. Every piece of information you're holding in your head instead of writing down, every decision you're making in real time instead of making in advance, every open loop you're tracking mentally instead of externally, all of it is taxing your working memory and reducing your available IQ. Literally, not figuratively. You're making yourself measurably dumber by trying to keep everything in your head. The fix is not productivity hacks. The fix is externalization. Get everything out of your head and into a system. Any system. Write down the decisions, automate the routines, put the keys in the same place every day. Not because you're type A, because every micro decision you eliminate frees up neural bandwidth for the thinking that actually matters. The most organized people in the world aren't organized because they love order. They're organized because they understand the neurological cost of disorder and they refuse to pay it. Book number 4 is The Courage to Be Disliked. Here's the lesson. You're not living your life. You're living your fear of other people's judgment, and it has cost you everything authentic about you. This is the book that makes you angry first and feel free second. Because its central argument attacks the one thing most of us have built our entire identity around, and we don't even realize it. The book is structured as a conversation between a philosopher and a young man. The philosopher draws on the work of Alfred Adler, the third giant of psychology, alongside Freud and Jung, whose ideas have been largely overlooked in the West but are foundational in Japan. And Adler's central claim is the one thing that will make you want to throw this book across the room before you realize it's true. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems. Every single one. Not most, all. Your anxiety about your career, that's anxiety about how other people will judge your career. Your dissatisfaction with your body, that's dissatisfaction filtered through how you believe others perceive your body. Your reluctance to pursue the thing you actually want, that's calculation, unconscious, instant, and devastating about what pursuing it would cost you in other people's eyes. Adler called this separation of tasks, and it's the single most liberating framework I've ever encountered. The idea is this: in any situation, there are your tasks and there are other people's tasks. Your task is to live according to your values, to do your best work, to be honest, to act with integrity. Other people's task is to have their opinion about it. Their judgment is their task, not yours. And the moment you start doing your tasks while also trying to manage their tasks, their perceptions, their expectations, their approval, you lose the ability to do either one well. Here's what makes this so difficult. Dr. Naomi Eisenberger's fMRI research at UCLA, the same research that showed social rejection activates the brain's physical pain matrix, explains why we're so enslaved to the opinions of others. Disapproval doesn't feel like an option. It feels like a threat. Your nervous system processes the possibility of being disliked using the same neural hardware it uses for physical danger. So when I tell you to stop caring what people think, your brain hears, stop protecting yourself from harm. No wonder it sounds impossible. But here's what the book showed me that changed everything. The freedom you're looking for. The freedom to pursue what matters to you, to be who you actually are, to stop performing and start living. That freedom has a price. And the price is being disliked. Not by everyone, but by some people. The people who preferred the performing version of you, the people whose expectations you were carrying, the people whose approval was running your life without your conscious permission. You cannot be free and universally approved of at the same time. Those two things are mutually exclusive. Every authentic life in human history has been built on the willingness to disappoint someone. And the person you're most afraid of disappointing is almost certainly the person whose approval has been costing you the most, controlling you the most. The courage to be disliked is not arrogance, it's not selfishness. It's the prerequisite for an honest life. An honest life, Adler would argue, and I now believe, is the only life that doesn't eventually collapse under the weight of its own performance. Mother's Day is a moment to pause and really think about the woman who shaped so much of who we are. The one who dreamed before we knew how to dream for ourselves. The one who kept going even when things were hard. The one who showed up again and again, often without needing recognition. This Mother's Day, celebrate her with something that reflects not just what she's done, but who she is. With Pandora jewelry, you can choose a piece that holds meaning. Something that represents your relationship, your memories, your journey together. And what I love is how you can make it personal. You can engrave something in your own handwriting, a date, a name, a phrase that only the two of you understand. Because sometimes the smallest details carry the deepest meaning. Because the best Mother's Day gift doesn't just say, I love you. It says, I see you. Find the perfect Mother's Day gift at your local Pandora store or online at pandora.net. Book number 5, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. The lesson: you have two brains and they're lying to each other. And the one you trust most is the one that's wrong most often. This book showed me that the machine I was using to navigate the world, my own brain, is far less reliable than I believed. Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics despite being a psychologist, which would tell you something about the importance of his work, spent decades with his research partner Amos Tversky mapping the systematic errors in human judgment. Not random errors, systematic ones. predictable ones, errors that repeat across every culture, every education level, every IQ bracket. His framework is deceptively simple. You have two cognitive systems. System one is fast, automatic, intuitive, and effortless. It's the system that reads facial expressions, finishes sentences, and makes snap judgments in milliseconds. System two is slow, deliberate, analytical, and effortful. It's the system that does math, evaluates evidence, and makes complex decisions. Here's the problem. System one runs the show approximately 95% of the time. And System one, for all its speed and efficiency, is riddled with biases. It uses mental shortcuts, heuristics that are often useful, but frequently catastrophically wrong. It anchors to irrelevant numbers. It confuses how easily it can recall something with how likely that thing is. It substitutes easy questions for hard ones without telling you it made the swap. But the real devastation is this. System one doesn't just make errors, it makes errors and then delivers the answer to System two with absolute confidence. You don't feel the bias operating, you feel the certainty. The intuition arrives and it feels right. It feels like truth. And System two, which is supposed to be the fact checker, is lazy. It mostly rubber stamps whatever System one delivers because engaging System two is metabolically expensive. Your brain would rather be wrong effortlessly than right effortfully. The single idea that changed my life? The feeling of certainty is not evidence of accuracy. The strength of your intuition about something, how right it feels, how obvious it seems, how confident you are, has almost no correlation with whether you're actually correct. Kahneman proved this across hundreds of studies. Confidence is not a signal of truth. It is a signal of cognitive fluency. It means the thought was easy to produce. That's it. After this book, I started treating my strongest intuitions with the most suspicion, not the least. Because the moments when I feel most certain are precisely the moments when System one is most likely to have hijacked the process. And the question I now ask myself before every important decision, am I sure about this because I've thought it through? Or am I sure about this because it feels easy, has saved me from more bad calls than any other mental tool I own. Book number 6 is called Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. Here's the lesson. Happiness is not a destination or an emotion. It's a state of absorption that you can engineer. This is the book that solved the happiness question for me. Not by answering it, by making me realize I'd been asking the wrong question entirely. Most people spend their 20s chasing happiness as if it were a place they could arrive at. If they got the right job, the right relationship, the right body, the right bank balance, they'd arrived. They'd feel it. The pursuit would be over. Flow takes it differently. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, a psychologist whose name I practiced pronouncing for longer than I'd like to admit, studied happiness for decades. Not by asking people if they were happy, by interrupting people throughout their day and asking what they were doing and how they felt in that moment. Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of data points across cultures, demographics, and income levels. What he found destroyed the conventional model. The moments when people reported the highest levels of fulfillment, joy, and aliveness were not moments of relaxation, leisure, or reward. They were moments of deep absorption in a challenging task. Moments where their skill level was perfectly matched to the difficulty of what they were doing. Not too easy, not too hard, but right at the edge of their ability. Let me explain this. If you're doing something where your skills are above the challenge, you'll feel bored. If you do something where your challenge is above your skills, you'll feel lost and confused. But if you have your challenge and your skills match, you will experience flow. So in any given situation, you either have to increase your skills or increase your challenge. Mihai called this flow state. The people who experienced the most flow and therefore the most moment-to-moment happiness were not the wealthiest, not the most successful, or the most celebrated. They were the ones who had structured their lives around activities that demanded their full attention and pushed the edge of their capability. This means happiness is not something you achieve after the work is done. It's something you experience during the work if the work is the right challenge and the right skill. Book number 7 is The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Here's the lesson. You don't fail because you built the wrong thing. You fail because you built the perfect version of something nobody asked for. This is the book that cured me of the most dangerous mindset you can develop in your 20s. Perfectionism disguised as preparation. Here's what I used to do. I'd have an idea for a project, a business, a piece of content, a life change, whatever. And for weeks, sometimes months, I'd be perfecting, refining, trying to figure it out, making sure it was exactly right before I showed it to anyone. And then when I finally revealed this polished, meticulously crafted thing to the world would shrug. Not because the execution was bad, but because the premise was wrong. I'd spent months building a beautiful answer to a question nobody was asking. Eric Ries calls this the fundamental startup fallacy, and it applies to far more than startups. It applies to careers, creative work, to relationships, to every domain where you're building something you hope other people will value. The fallacy is this. You assume you know what people want. You build the complete version in isolation, and you treat the launch as a single high-stakes pass-or-fail moment. That model fails at a staggering rate, not because of bad execution, but because of untested assumptions. Rise's solution is the minimum viable product, the MVP. And the MVP is not, as most people think, a worse version of your idea. It's the smallest possible version that lets you test whether your core assumption is correct before you invest months or years building on top of it. It's not about lowering your standards. It's about learning before you build rather than building and hoping you learn. Here's the idea that rewired me. The fastest path to something great is not perfecting. It's exposing your imperfect thing to reality as early as possible, listening to what reality says back and iterating. Ship it ugly, ship it incomplete, ship it scared, because a mediocre thing that has been tested against the real world will evolve into something greater faster than a perfect thing that has only been tested against your own assumptions. This applies to everything, businesses for sure, but not just products. That conversation you've been rehearsing in your head for weeks, have the messy version now. That career change you've been planning in a spreadsheet for 6 months, run a small experiment this week. That creative project you keep perfecting in private, publish the rough draft, the video, the podcast, whatever it may be. Let reality be your editor. It's better at the job than you are. Book number 8 is The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. You can tell I've read this one a few times. I've lost the cover. Here's the lesson. You don't use reason to form your beliefs. You use your beliefs to select your reasons, and everyone you disagree with is doing the same thing. This is the book that changed how I debate and discuss things, how I listen, and how I think about every person I've ever dismissed as wrong. Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist at NYU, and his central argument is one of the most humbling findings in modern psychology. Moral reasoning is not what you think it is. You think you arrive at your moral and political beliefs through careful thought, evidence evaluation, and logical analysis. You don't. You arrive at them through intuition, a fast automatic emotional response, and then you construct rational-sounding arguments after the fact to justify what you already feel. Haidt's metaphor is devastating. Reason is not the driver, it's the press secretary. The driver is intuition. The press secretary's job is not to seek truth. It's to defend the position the driver already took. And the press secretary is brilliant at its job. It can find evidence for anything. It can construct a compelling case for any position. Not because the position is correct, because that's what press secretaries do. This means that when you're in an argument with someone about values, about any charged topic, you're not watching two rational minds clash. You're watching two press secretaries perform. Neither one is seeking truth. Both are defending the intuition that was already there before the first word was spoken. But here's the part that should change how you engage with everyone you disagree with. Haidt identifies 6 moral foundations: care, fairness, liberty, loyalty, authority, and sanctity, that function like taste buds for moral judgment. Different people in different cultures weight these foundations differently. Liberals tend to weight care and fairness heavily and discount loyalty, authority, and sanctity. Conservatives tend to weight all 6 more equally. Neither configuration is wrong. They're different moral palettes. And the person you think is insane, the person whose views make no sense to you, whose positions seem cruel or naive or backwards, is not operating without morality. They're operating on a different combination of the same moral ingredients you use. They're tasting the same meal, with a different tongue. After this book, I stopped trying to win arguments, because winning an argument means convincing someone's press secretary, which changes nothing. Instead, I started trying to understand which moral foundations the other person was weighing most heavily. What are they actually protecting? What value are they afraid of losing? What do they care about that I'm not seeing? The moment you understand someone's moral foundation, even if you disagree with their conclusion, something shifts. They stop seeming like an idiot to you. They become a person navigating the same complex world with a different moral instrument panel. And that shift from dismissal to understanding is not weakness, it's the beginning of actual wisdom. Book number 9 is the Bhagavad Gita. Here's the lesson. You have the right to the work, but never to the fruit of the work. And this single idea makes every other book on this list make sense. I told you at the beginning to stay for this one. It's a conversation between a warrior named Arjun and his charioteer Krishna, who also happens to be God. Arjun is standing on a battlefield, about to enter a war, and he's paralyzed. Not by fear, but by overthinking. He's calculating outcomes, weighing consequences, trapped in the infinite loop of what if I'm wrong? Sound familiar? Krishna's instruction to Arjun, the central teaching of the entire text, is contained in one verse, chapter 2, verse 47. And it is, without exaggeration, the single most powerful operating instruction I've ever encountered. You have the right to your work, but never to the fruit of the work. Let not the fruit of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction. Now think about that again slowly and let me explain it. You have the right to the work. You control the work. You control the process. You don't control the result. The work is where all your focus should be, because the result is something you don't have full control over. Here's what this looks like in practice. It doesn't mean you don't care about results. It doesn't mean you don't have goals. It means you do the work with everything you have, full effort, full presence, full integrity, and then you open your hands. Whatever comes back, comes back. If the result is what you hoped for, good. If it isn't, also good, because your self-worth was never attached to it. Your identity was never riding on it. You did the work. That's the only thing that was ever yours. Most of us can't do this. Most of us need the result to validate the effort. I worked so hard, so I deserve the outcome. But when we work that way, we often get depleted if we don't get the outcome. The Gita doesn't say stop wanting. It says stop needing the result to be the way you want it to be. Work toward it, but don't need it to be the way you want it to be. Because the moment you need it to be a certain way, you've handed your piece to a variable you don't control. Book number 10 is Breath by James Nestor. Here's the lesson. The most powerful tool you have for changing your mental state is not in your mind. It's the thing you've been doing wrong 40,000 times a day. I'm ending with this book because after 9 books about the mind, how it thinks, how it decides, how it deceives, how it suffers, this book lands you back in the body. And that's exactly where you need to end up. James Nestor is a journalist who spent years investigating something so basic, so overlooked, so absurdly fundamental that the fact we ignore it should embarrass us. Breathing. The thing you do approximately 20,000 times a day, the thing you've never been taught to do correctly. The thing that is, according to the research Nestor compiles, the single most direct lever you have for altering your nervous system, your cognitive function, your stress response, your sleep, and your emotional state. Here's the finding from the book that I think about every single day. Nestor participated in a study at Stanford where participants had their noses completely blocked for 10 days, forcing them to breathe exclusively through their mouths. Within days, not weeks, their blood pressure increased, their heart rate variably tanked, their stress hormones spiked, their sleep quality collapsed, their cognitive performance measurably declined. They experienced anxiety, brain fog, and exhaustion from changing nothing in their lives except the pathway through which air entered their body. Then they switched back to nasal breathing, and every single metric reversed. This should stop you in your tracks. Nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. That was the variable, and it shifted everything. The science is extensive. Nasal breathing filters and humidifies air, increases nitric oxide production, which dilates blood vessels and improves oxygen absorption, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and engages the diaphragm in a way that mouth breathing does not. The body is the foundation, and the single fastest way to change the state of your body is the thing you're doing right now as you watch this without thinking about it. The breath. Slow it down, breathe through your nose, extend the exhale. 5 seconds in, 7 seconds out. The way you breathe while you work, while you drive, while you speak, while you work out will change your life. I'm so glad you watched this video. I hope that you'll take a moment to dive into one of these books this month. Let me know in the comments which one you're excited to read. I can't wait to see what you learn. Thank you for being here. Remember, I'm forever in your corner, and I'm always rooting for you. If you love this episode, you'll enjoy my interview with Dr. Daniel Amen on how to change your life by changing your brain.
They don't do things until someone's mad at them to get it done. They need stress in order to get stuff done. And that just makes everybody around them stressed.